She asked him, "Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Cece?" He said he wasn't sure if he told her yes. Then he killed her anyway. Bella Watts was 4 years old. She watched her father kill her 3-year-old sister in the backseat of a truck. She asked him that question in a soft voice, and then she fought back with everything a 4-year-old has. She scratched. She struggled. She fought for her life. Her last words were 2 words. "Daddy, no." His name is Chris Watts. He killed his pregnant wife Shanann, his daughters Bella and Celeste, and his unborn son Nicho on August 13, 2018 in Frederick, Colorado. He drove 45 minutes to an oil field where he worked, buried his wife in a shallow grave, and dropped his daughters' bodies into crude oil storage tanks. Then he went home, cleaned the house, called the police to report his family missing, and stood in front of television cameras begging for their safe return while his daughters were already dead inside oil tanks at a worksite 45 minutes away. In this video, I am going to show you 4 things that most coverage of this case never puts together in one place: who Shanann Watts really was and what her life looked like in the months before she was murdered. The full confession, every detail Chris Watts told investigators about exactly what happened in that truck and why. What he has been writing from prison to the women who send him love letters and bikini photos, and the 2025 revelation that tells you exactly who Chris Watts is today. By the end of this video, you will understand something about this case that the original headlines never gave you. This was not a crime of passion. This was not a man who snapped. This was a man who planned, who calculated, who tried to kill his unborn son before he ever put his hands around his wife's neck, and who is now telling the world from prison that God has forgiven him. Stay with me, because the letters are worse than anything you heard at the time of the arrest. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. This channel covers the full story. Not just the headlines from 2018, but everything that has come out since, including the prison confession, the letters, and the 2025 updates that nobody is covering. If you are following this case and you are not subscribed, you are missing the picture. Subscribe now. And comment below before we go any further. Did you know before today that Chris Watts was drugging his pregnant wife, trying to cause a miscarriage before he murdered her? Because that detail was buried in the prison letters, and most people who followed the original case never heard it. Let me know in the comment. Let's start with Shanann, because every piece of coverage of this case starts with Chris Watts, and that is exactly backward. The story of what happened in Frederick, Colorado in August 2018 starts with a woman named Shanann Watts, who built a life, built a family, and was betrayed in the most complete and devastating way a person can be betrayed. Shanann Watts was born in January 1984 in Aberdeen, North Carolina. She grew up in a close family. She was warm, ambitious, and by every account of people who knew her, fully and completely present with the people she loved. She met Chris Watts in 2010. He was quiet, introverted, the kind of man who went along with things. She pursued him. On their first date, she showed up in a dress, and he showed up in what he later described as comfortable clothes. She told him he wasn't her type. He pursued her anyway. They married in 2012. By 2018, they had 2 daughters. Bella Marie Watts was born in December 2013. Celeste Catherine Watts, who everyone called Cece, was born in July 2015. Shanann documented their lives extensively on social media. The posts show exactly what they looked like from the outside. A mother who was completely devoted to her children. Birthday parties with elaborate decoration, vacations, ordinary Tuesday afternoons that she turned into something worth photographing because she understood that ordinary Tuesdays were the substance of a life. She also worked hard. She traveled frequently for a nutrition supplement company called Lavelle. She managed the household. She managed the family finance. By Chris Watts' own later account, she was the dominant personality in the marriage. She made most of the decisions, organized the medications, kept the household running. He described himself as the one who went with the flow. In the spring of 2018, Shanann found out she was pregnant again. 15 weeks along by August, they had already named the baby, Nicho Lee Watts. What Shanann did not know was that her husband had been living a completely different life since the beginning of that summer. In June 2018, Chris Watts met a woman named Nicole Kessinger at work. He was an operator at Anadarko Petroleum. He brought a broken gas meter to her office to have it fixed. They ran into each other a few more times around the building. The 4th time they met, he mentioned that they had moved from North Carolina. She asked what he meant by we. He showed her photos of Bella and Celeste. She knew he was married. She knew he had children. She saw a photo of Shanann on the lock screen of his phone. What she did not know was that Shanann was pregnant, because Chris Watts never told her. He told Kessinger he was in the process of divorcing Shanann. He told her the marriage was already effectively over. A month into their relationship, he told her the divorce was final. None of it was true. By July 2018, Chris Watts was spending almost every night away from home. He told Kessinger he had moved out. He told her he was free. He took her to a car museum in Boulder. He took her camping at the Great Sand Dunes National Park, his first time camping. He told investigators later that when he was with Kessinger, it was like a blinder in his face. He could not see anything else. He described it as a roller coaster he kept punching the ticket on and could not get off. Meanwhile, Shanann was home with Bella and Cece, pregnant, traveling for work, managing everything, with no idea that her husband was using the family bank account to take another woman to dinner. In late July, Shanann noticed the bank account. She noticed the charges. She started asking questions. And 2 days before the murders, on August 11th, Shanann and Chris were at a family gathering where his mother made comments that upset Shanann. There was tension. There were arguments. Shanann reached out to friends asking for support. On August 12th, Shanann flew back from a business trip. A neighbor's doorbell camera captured her returning at 1:48 in the morning on August 13th. She walked to the front door. She went inside. She never came out. Subscribe right now, because the next part of this story is the full confession, the conversation in the bedroom, the 45-minute drive, and the words Bella said in that truck that Chris Watts says he hears every time he closes his eyes. Hit subscribe and keep watching. Comment below right now. Before you hear what happened in that truck, I want to ask you something. Shanann's friends said they noticed something was wrong in the weeks before the murders, but nobody knew how wrong. Did you know that Shanann had reached out to close friends asking for support in the days before she was killed? Does knowing that change how you feel about what came next? Let's talk about what Chris Watts told investigators happened that night. Shanann came to bed. By his own account in the prison interview, they were intimate one last time that night. He told investigators it felt like a test. He knew that she knew something. He had used the family bank account on a date with Kessinger 2 days earlier and had not tried to hide it. He told investigators, "I knew something wasn't right. I knew that she knew." He woke her up in the early morning hours of August 13th. He told her he did not think the marriage was going to work. He told her he did not love her. Shanann told him he was never going to see the children again. He put both hands around her neck and strangled her to death. He does not know why she did not fight back or scream. He told investigators he believes she may have been praying. 4-year-old Bella walked in while he was wrapping Shanann's body in a blanket. She asked what was wrong with Mommy. He told her Mommy was sick, and they needed to take her to the hospital to make her better. He put Shanann's body in the floorboard of the truck. He told Bella and Cece to get in the back seat. Both girls had their blankets. Cece had a stuffed animal. He backed the truck out of the driveway and drove toward the oil field where he worked, 45 minutes away. During the drive, the girls dozed in and out. They laid in each other's laps in the back seat. At some point, Bella told him the car smelled funny. When they arrived at the field, Chris took Shanann's body out of the truck and laid her on the ground. Bella and Cece were in the back seat and asked what he was doing with Mommy. He does not remember what he told them. He came back to the truck. He took Cece's blue Yankees blanket and put it over her head. He strangled her in the back seat while Bella sat next to them. Bella did not say anything while he killed her sister. He carried Cece's body to an oil tank and dropped her inside. He walked back to the truck. Bella was still there. She asked him in a soft voice, "Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Cece?" He told investigators he was not sure if he told her yes. He put the same blanket over Bella's head. He strangled her. Bella fought back. She scratched. She struggled. According to the medical examiner, there were scratches on her body from being forced through the tank opening. A tuft of her blonde hair was found on the edge of the hatch. Her last words were, "Daddy, no." He dropped her body into a separate oil tank. He walked to where he had laid Shanann's body on the ground and buried her in a shallow grave. He drove home. He cleaned the house meticulously. He staged it to look like Shanann had left him, put her wedding ring on the counter to make it look like she wanted a divorce, threw away a therapy book to make it seem like she had given up on the marriage. He took the family dog to a neighbor's house, and then he called the police to report his family missing. The body cam footage from the police response that morning is one of the most unsettling things in this entire case. Officers arrive and speak with Chris Watts in the front yard. He is cooperative. He answers their questions. He tells them he last saw Shanann at around 5:15 in the morning when he left for work. He lets them search the house. He shifts his weight from leg to leg. Officers note that the house is immaculate, unusually clean for a home with 2 young children and an infant on the way. Cece's EpiPen for her severe nut allergy is still in the house. Shanann's purse, which always contained her lupus medication, is still there. Her car is in the garage. Her wedding ring is on the counter. Later that day, Chris Watts gives a television interview begging for his family's safe return. He says the house is not complete without everybody. He says he needs to see everybody again. His daughters were inside oil tanks 45 minutes away while he said those words to a camera. He failed a polygraph test. He asked to speak to his father. And then his story changed. He admitted to killing Shanann, but he claimed she had killed the girls, that he found her strangling Cece, strangled Shanann in a rage, and did not know what had happened to Bella. He maintained this story for months. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all charges to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Then the letters started. Let's talk about what happened after Chris Watts went to prison, because this is the part of the story that is still unfolding in 2025. Among the approximately 4,000 pages of case documents released by the Weld County District Attorney's Office after sentencing, investigators found dozens of letters from women who had written to Chris Watts in prison. Love letters, letters with photos, letters that called him a good man. One woman wrote that she had been watching his interviews and had become attracted to him and his story. Her letter was decorated with doodles of hearts. She wrote that she hoped they could meet one day. Another woman included a photo of herself in a bikini standing on a beach. She told him he had one of the kindest faces she had ever seen, and that she did not want him to feel alone. A third wrote that she knew in her heart that he was a good guy. This is the man who strangled his pregnant wife, who smothered his 3-year-old in the backseat of a truck, who killed his 4-year-old daughter after she begged him with her last words not to do it. And women who know all of this are sending him love letters, sending him bikini photos, telling him he has a kind face, and they do not want him to feel alone. But the love letters from fans are not the most disturbing correspondence Chris Watts has produced from prison. In 2021, Inside Edition reported details from letters Watts had written to a pen pal. In those letters, he made confessions that had not come out at sentencing, and that changed the picture of what happened completely. He had been planning the murders for several weeks before carrying them out. This was not a man who snapped in an argument. He had been thinking about it, planning it, working through it in his mind for weeks while Shanann was home with Bella and Cece, and the pregnancy that was now visibly showing. He had also been drugging Shanann. The OxyContin found in her system during the autopsy was given to her by him. He had been giving it to her hoping to cause a miscarriage. He believed that if the pregnancy ended, it would be easier to leave Shanann and be with Kessinger without the complication of a third child. He tried to kill his unborn son before he ever put his hands around Shanann's neck. He also revealed that he had attempted to smother the girls in their beds at home before they got in the truck. He tried. He was unsuccessful the first time. He put the girls in the truck and drove 45 minutes to an oil field and tried again. This was his second attempt to kill his daughters. None of this was in the original reporting. None of it came out at sentencing. It came out in letters he wrote voluntarily from prison to a pen pal. And then in August 2025, new letters from Chris Watts became public. In these letters, he describes himself as a new man. He says God has forgiven him. He says he has been redeemed. In previous years, his lawyer had appeared on the Dr. Phil show and described how Watts had found God in prison, at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, where he was transferred from Colorado for his own safety. Chris Watts spends his days reading the Bible. He keeps photos of Shanann, Bella, and Cece on his cell wall. He told investigators in the prison interview that every time he closes his eyes, he hears Bella saying, "Daddy, no." He reads to their photos every night. He says God has forgiven him. He tried to kill his unborn son by drugging his pregnant wife for weeks. He made one unsuccessful attempt to smother his daughters in their beds. He put them in a truck, drove 45 minutes, killed them one at a time with the same blanket, dropped their bodies into oil tanks. He killed the 4-year-old after she begged him not to. He buried his pregnant wife in a shallow grave. He drove home, cleaned the house, called the police, and spent 2 days telling cameras he just wanted his family back. And from prison he writes that he is a new man, and God has forgiven him. There is also the matter of Nicole Kessinger, the woman Chris Watts was having the affair with, the woman he was planning to start a new life with after eliminating his family, cooperated fully with investigators, and was never charged with any crime. After the case concluded, she disappeared from public life. Privacy experts have noted that she appears to be living under an assumed name, possibly Nicole Miller, using a P.O. box and other tools to remain untraceable. In January 2025, someone claiming to have spotted Kessinger filmed a video at a funeral home in Billings, Montana. The video circulated widely in true crime community. Whether it is actually her has not been confirmed. The Weld County District Attorney stated that the evidence showed Chris Watts had every intention of starting a brand new life, clean of Shanann and Bella and Celeste and Nicho, with Nicole Kessinger. That is the documented prosecutorial finding on motive. He killed his family to be with his girlfriend. He killed them because they were in the way of the life he had decided he wanted. And now from prison he says he is a new man. Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzucek, have been living with this since August 2018. They won a $6 million civil judgment against Chris Watts, $3 million for each death, and additional amounts for emotional pain. The judgment accumulates at 8% interest. They will almost certainly never collect any of it. Chris Watts is in a maximum security prison for the rest of his natural life and has nothing to collect. Frank Rzucek has spoken publicly about the harassment his family received online in the years after the murders. People who believed Chris Watts' original story that Shanann killed the girls directed their anger at her family. People who built parasocial relationships with Chris Watts through his prison letters found ways to contact the Rzuceks. The family has been living not just with the grief of losing Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nicho, but with the ongoing reality of a case that never truly closed, because the man who caused it keeps writing letters from prison, and people keep responding to them. Frank Rzucek's response to the letters claiming Chris Watts has been forgiven and is a new man has been consistent and clear. He is not interested in what Chris Watts says from prison. There is nothing Chris Watts can say that changes what he did. Comment below. Do you think Chris Watts has genuinely changed? Or do you think the prison letters claiming redemption and forgiveness are the same performance as standing in front of television cameras begging for his family to come back while their bodies were in oil tanks? The man who planned murders for weeks and tried to kill his unborn son by drugging his pregnant wife. Is that the same man who found God and is a new man in prison? I read every single comment, and I respond to every one. Subscribe right now, because the next video on this channel covers the Shanann Watts family, what Frank and Sandra Rzucek have been through since 2018, how they have responded to the ongoing media coverage, and what they have said about the Lifetime film and Netflix documentary that were made without their full cooperation. That video is coming this week. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss it. Bella Watts was 4 years old. She asked her father one question before she died. Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Cece? He was not sure if he told her yes. He says he hears her voice every time he closes his eyes. He reads to her photograph every night. He says God has forgiven him and he is a new man. And in an oil field in Frederick, Colorado, there used to be a shallow grave and 2 oil tanks. The site has been cleared. The house on Saratoga Trail was sold in October 2024 for $650,000. The physical locations are gone. But Bella asked her father if the same thing was going to happen to her as Cece, and he killed her anyway. No amount of Bible reading changes that. I'll see you in the next one.